My name is Steven, and I'm the co-founder of Taraxa. Welcome to our AMA, and let's get into it. Okay. So today, as usual, we're going to give everyone a quick update on the network status. We're going to do a quick update on the progress that we made in the past few weeks. And then I'm going to take a little bit of time to talk about Taraxa Echo, which is our social listening platform that we've written quite a bit about in the past few weeks. So I'll give you guys a rundown on that. And then, of course, as usual, we'll have time for a Q&A. Okay. If you have questions, you can feel free to submit them into the Q&A of this webinar. I'll also be looking at questions that have been submitted over Twitter. Okay. So in terms of the network status, we have around 436 million Tera state, and around 377 million that has been delegated. So thank you very much for your continuing support. This is really gaining momentum over time. For those of you who have staked but have not delegated, please delegate right now, because if you don't delegate, you don't receive any yields. And it's not really going towards enabling any more consensus nodes to work on our network. So please, if you've staked but have not delegated, please delegate. Thank you. For our network, it's been pretty stable. The mainnet has been running pretty stable at 57 mainnet candidate nodes, and the testnet is around 259. We've deployed a variety of fixes and new features onto these networks. For the mainnet specifically, we have fixed a bug that has been going on for a while, which is causing the transactions to fail. It's really caused by insufficient number of tokens that were actually in place for the Genesis block when we deployed the mainnet network at the end of last year. So that problem has been fixed via a hard fork. We've pushed a variety of fixes into the testnet. The most important one that we think is a high priority right now is really the oscillation issue. So if you've been seeing swings in the amount of DAG blocks that your node has been producing, so sometimes very easy, sometimes very hard, and so that problem we believe has been fixed, and so that's been a major stability milestone for us. We're also looking at a security audit that's up and coming, so I'll talk a little bit about that later. In terms of our development, we have two primary milestones. The first one is native token conversion. So there's a variety of goals that goes towards native token conversion. We talked about the stability, which we hit some pretty interesting milestones and pretty important to the successful native token conversion process. So we're also progressing on the security audit process. So earlier in the year, we started to interview a variety of security audit firms, around 6 of them. We've gotten their plans. We've had discussions with them. We've gotten their plans and approaches. We've submitted them to the exchanges, the 3 exchanges I think the foundation has had contractual relationship with, which is KuCoin, Gate, and AscentX. All of them have approved of the overall approach that we're going to take, or the audit firm collaborating with the development team is going to take to actually conduct security audits on the layer 1. And right now we have submitted these proposals for these contracts from the audit firms to the foundation's legal team. So that's progressing forward nicely, and we expect that the security audit should begin pretty soon. Okay. In terms of the development around the community site, we have one of the major milestones that we've hit is that we've created a set of automated scripts to actually calculate how much rewards should be rewarded for staking and as well as for delegation. So delegation and staking are dynamic. They're dynamic variables, right? That happen over time. People can change their commissions. People can change the way they delegate. They can pull their delegation. So there's a lot of movement when it comes to how these things evolve. So we create a set of scripts to actually calculate that automatically, which we will use to actually double check against the protocol generated rewards when we activate the economics layer. So so that's another major milestone towards the native token conversion. Okay, so as for the social listening application, we're 43% there into releasing something the community can use and see. So the underlying data gathering network is almost complete. We're starting with Telegram, and we're starting with a little bit less than 10,000 groups that we're going to be looking at or indexing through the social listening network. So the data gathering layer is almost done. We've started work to actually deploy an analytics infrastructure and actually start to analyze that data once the network has started to gather a more complete set of data across these Telegram groups. And we've designed a first iteration of a application, which we're calling Hype, which sits on top of the social listening platform. And we'll tell you a lot more about that later. Okay. Okay, cool. So this is another public service announcement. So despite all the momentum that we have achieved, we still have around 13.5% of stakers who have not delegated. So first of all, once again, thank you very, very, very much for staking in the Taraxa ecosystem and helping to secure the network. But please delegate. If you don't delegate, your stake isn't actually doing any work, and it's not going to be earning yields. The silver lining of all this is that 13.5% is a 1% improvement over the last AMA, in which we had 14.5%. So we are improving, but please, if you have staked but have not delegated, please delegate right now. We have a very nice delegation step-by-step guide that you can look at. So we can get this over and get everyone's stake token to actually start working. Okay, so the main topic of this AMA is that I want to talk a little bit about the Taraxa Echo platform that we are releasing. Okay, so that we've been working on. And in order to do that, I'd like to just show everyone what is Taraxa Echo in relation to the rest of the ecosystem. Like, how does it fit, right? So as everyone already knows, we have the Taraxa ledger, which is a layer 1 ledger that we've built based on a combination of BlockDAG and PBFT, and on top of which our primary use case, or the category of use case that we're targeting, is really to make informal data trustworthy, right? And to make them useful by making them trustworthy. So we've said this over and over again. Over 80% of the world's data is informal and largely wasted, basically, because people don't bother collecting them, or maybe they're collected, but they're not being used because they're not trustworthy, right? So it's very difficult to trust informal data, which has not been recorded down into nice databases, formatted, or they have not been signing to contracts, or there's no way for people to really trust the content or the way that it's been collected and the content of what's collected. So by introducing decentralization, decentralized methods of data collection, data analysis, and things like audit trails, we can make this type of data very trustworthy and actually make use of them, right? It's that much data, it's got to be useful for something. So we have a variety of use cases that we've introduced in the past. So some of them I think the first set of use cases that we worked on are related to machine generated data, right? So how machine generates a lot of data, but a lot of times this data isn't really being used because people can't agree on, once again, do I trust this data? Is it actually collected and analyzed in a way that makes me feel comfortable with where it came from and whether or not it's been tampered with, things like that, right? So we've had use cases in asset leasing involving these arcade machines, and we've had use cases in which we monitor these high value assets like whiskey, right? People are actually purchasing NFTs for. So so this Helio platform, which sits on top of the Taraxa layer 1, is enabling machine-generated data to become trustworthy and useful, right? So we've also talked about Marinate, which is looking at data generated by humans. Really, it's really looking at how to make informal agreements between people much more trustworthy. So we have had use cases inside construction involving change orders inside construction on construction site. Lots of changes on a daily basis with regards to the design, the people, labor, time, all kinds of things, right? And we have ways to actually make those informal agreements that people make much more trustworthy, so to minimize the amount of confusion and delay that you have actually in these work settings. Supply chain and quality assurance, it's another use case that we've been working on, and part of the Marinate platform, right? So similar to the construction change orders. So the main topic today is really about Echo, right? So like the type of data generated by machines, like the data that's being generated through informal agreements in business settings, we generate a ton of data in informal social interactions, right? So when someone makes a post, when someone has a conversation on Telegram, on Discord, that's really what we call a sort of an informal social interaction. That data is sort of floating around. There's massive amounts of it. How do you make it so that it's trustworthy enough to enable automated mechanisms, right? This is actually very, very important, which is that if you don't fundamentally trust the way the data is being collected or the way the data is being centralized, you can't enable automated mechanisms with it, right? So what does that mean, automated mechanism? Well, the best example that we have today that has reached a very large scale implementation is DeFi, right? So you can see that when you have trusted data or data that's being generated in a decentralized way, coupled on-chain data, off-chain data, you can actually start creating massively innovative and productive mechanisms to really enable interesting applications, right? So we want to actually do the same with social, right? So it sounds pretty abstract, so we'll talk about two specific apps that we're thinking about enabling with the Echo platform, right? So once you have listened and gathered the data and analyzed it in a way that's trustworthy, what are you going to do with it, right? So what are some use cases that we can think of? The first one we're calling hype farming, right? So it's really this problem of, if you're trying to hype up a project or hype up a topic, or if you're a project that's trying to run some marketing campaigns, how do you really know what exactly you're spending money on? How do you know the impact of the things that you're promoting, right? So it's actually very difficult. If you ever run, say, for example, a social bounty, you'll know that the vast majority of those bounties are being consumed by bounty hunters who have very little relevance in what they talk about, the communities that they stay in, to your project, right? So they could be somebody who's very agnostic because that's their entire job. They hunt down bounties and they fulfill them, right? So they don't have a focus, they don't have a community, they don't really have anything, and they consume all of your bounties, right? So that's one way where this is very, very problematic, right? If you run an AMA, for example, inside Telegram, you'll see that most of the questions are copy pasted. You don't know who's actually sitting in these groups and listening, whether or not they're all bots or not. You don't really have a good way of figuring out how relevant this group's conversation or topics are to what you're trying to promote over time. The people who are asking the questions, are they bots or are they bounty hunters? Once again, right? So you can't really measure relevance. You can't really promote or measure the type of behaviors that you would like to promote. And therefore you cannot reward accordingly, right? Even if you pay people who are influencers on these platforms, you'll have a very hard time figuring out exactly what the impact of these things are. Or is it actually generating the type of conversations that you want people to be having as a result of the marketing campaign, or the results of the resources and time that you have actually committed to hyping up your project, for example. So how does Echo, or how does the social listening platform solve this problem? Well, if you can continuously and decentralize in a way that continuously monitor and analyze social data in a way that's trustworthy, right, through decentralization, then you can actually continuously reward people, right, for the right type of behaviors that you want. So, I mean, what are the right type of behaviors? Well, first of all, you want to minimize the amount of copy pasting going on, right? You want to minimize the amount of people not having high quality discussions, but just copy pasting whatever message that you try to get out. So that's first one. The second one is that, are the people that are participating in this campaign, are they relevant? Are they actually going to become future community members for your projects? Or are they just, once again, a bunch of bounty hunters who don't really care and can't care less about what you're doing? So third is, what is the impact of this campaign, right? Or what are the individual impacts of people that have been talking about your project? Is it generating more and more discussions, organic discussions about your project? Or is it just a bunch of, once again, copy paste and falling on deaf ears? No one hears about it, or no one cares about it, right? So maybe you need to tweak your message. Maybe you need to find different people to actually deliver your message. What is the impact of this campaign? What is the impact of the hype, right? And you can do this continuously, right? Instead of having a one-off, the series of one-off marketing campaigns that ends up being consumed by people and groups that are probably not relevant, having no lasting impact. You can run something that's continuous and reward the right people and reward the right behaviors, right? So it becomes an automated mechanism to actually hype a specific topic, for example, your project. Right? So this is very, very powerful. This doesn't really exist anywhere except right now, what we're building right here. So this is solving a huge pain point, and it can we believe that it'll spread very virally because of that. The second one that we've been working on, and this is probably going to be a longer term application than, longer term meaning the development cycle might be a little bit longer, is this idea of trend spotting, right? So how do you figure out trends before they become hot, right? So I think for people who monitor this the space, the crypto space, for example, for the latest trends, for people who have people who want to invest, for people who want to just learn, for influencers as well, everyone wants to know what's up and coming, right? So what is going to be hot, or what might become hot before it actually becomes hot, right? So so how do you do that? Well, the traditional way is, and talk to a lot of people, a lot of influencers, a lot of investors, is that they would just spend a lot of time reading massive amounts of information over all kinds of social networks to figure out what the latest trends are, right? So not only is that highly inefficient, most humans, some are extraordinary, but most humans can only absorb and analyze so much information at a time, right? It's very tedious and very inaccurate a lot of times, right? So and so if you have an automated platform like Taraxa Echo, you're able to actually pull out, right, and monitor signals. Say you're interested in NFTs, right? Well, what are the latest NFTs that people are talking about? Or you're interested in coins, or you're interested in DeFi protocols, or you're interested in a specific technical topic. You can actually track what people are saying about it. Who's saying what? These are, of course, all in publicly available data, right? We're not pulling out any private information. So publicly stated social interactions in public groups. What are they talking about? What are some emerging topics that people are saying that haven't really reached sufficient traction, but you can start seeing, right, that this is going to happen in the future. And what's very interesting about this is that, of course, no one can perfectly predict the future. So people can actually customize a cluster of signals that they monitor, right? So maybe they look at a specific set of topics and look at the related topics that coalesce around these topics to figure out what are the emerging trends, what are the emerging signals that they're looking for. It's very interesting. You know, it's interesting for personal use, but what's even more interesting is when you actually make that publicly available, right? You can actually prove, literally on chain, you can prove that you've predicted a specific trend before it happened through the type of social signals that you actually set up to monitor, right? And this helps you build your reputation, build a following. It can help you, once again, attract and create and maintain an interesting community of people who are interested in identifying technical or financial or you know, product or whatever trends that they're seeing. And when it comes to automated mechanisms, you can also set up trading strategies or copy trading strategies based on these quantifiable signals, right? So as soon as you can see, as soon as you start to really quantify, make these social signals, make the social data that's, you know, very quantifiable, very verifiable, and start creating these signals, then you can start automating all kinds of interesting automated mechanisms, whether right now for the two cases are working on hyping a project, hyping a topic, or figuring out what people are talking about, identifying trends, right, spotting trends. So these are some of the early thoughts and things that we've been building. We're going to focus on building the hype farming application first, and we'll be able to share our results as soon as we have an early version of it. We'll actually be able to share a lot of the intermediate results for the Taraxa Echo platform as well. Things like, you know, how many groups we're tracking, what kind of data we're tracking, and, you know, so that community can see the progress and actually participate. We think that because it's a platform specifically designed for social, it would be very interesting for everyone to get involved, and everyone can get involved and see the impact of, you know, their conversations and the things that they actually interact, or their engagements, right? Their informal engagements and interactions actually in social. So we're very excited about this, and I hope you guys are too. Okay, so let's go through the AMA question and answer section. So let's see. So first, we're gonna go through some of the questions that we have on Twitter. So I'll just go through these. I'll just go through these one by one. Okay. All right. So this one is from Met. I hope I'm pronouncing these names right. My question to Mr. Stephen is: does our faith in trusting you, the magnitude of our expectations, create pressure and stress on you? Also, is there a story behind the name of the project? Why Taraxa? Okay, so well, first of all, I think, first of all, I mean, if you're doing something that you love, right, and working on Taraxa has really been the culmination of many life goals for myself. I really love doing this. I really love this project, and I think if you're doing something you really like, it's not really that stressful, right? I think we're very, very fortunate and lucky to have such a large community of people coalesce around this this mission and this vision that we've created. So it's not really about living up to expectations. It's really about, you know, driving the vision forward and really finding like-minded people who will come along with you on the journey, and that's you guys. So thank you very much for coming along with our journey. And yeah, this is exciting and a lot of fun, at least for myself and for many people on our team as well, I'm sure. So where does the name Tarasa come from? So we originally were trying to figure out an imagery of what decentralization means, and one of the interesting imagery that we came up with was was this idea of dandelions, right? So dandelions, you blow the seeds out and they fly around and they grow into dandelions themselves. So it just, you know, seems like a very decentralized ecosystem. So the Latin name for dandelion is, or the common dandelion is Taraxa officinale. So we just took I think the the first part of that and cut out the, made some edits, turned Taraxa AMA into Taraxa. So that's the origin of the name. It's really sort of a real life metaphor for decentralization and decentralized communities. Right. Okay, so scrolling down, I'm seeing a lot of questions about the uniqueness of Taraxa. So I think we can talk about the uniqueness of Taraxa in several points, right? So the first one is that the layer one, the ledger layer of Taraxa is very, very performant, and it's very device friendly. So it's really powered by this unique combination of block DAG and with true finality attached to it, right? And this completely breaks the trilemma trade-off being mentioned by Vitalik. So we're able to actually drastically increase throughput without sacrificing any security or decentralization. So this is very, very unique. It does it without sharding. So this is a very, very interesting piece of tech that we're developing. So if you want to find out more about that, you can go to our blog and go into the technology section where we have more digestible or easy to understand articles around our consensus mechanisms. I think the second thing that makes us very unique is that we have this laser focus on informal data, right? So we're not interested in just creating technology. We're not interested in copying other people's use cases. We have always been very persistent and very focused on solving this one type of problem, one category of problem, which is huge, right? So how do you make all this informal data in the world useful by making them trustworthy? Right now we're vastly wasting all of our data. Right? Okay, so I think these 2 points make us very, very unique among the the very crowded landscape of crypto, right? As many of you have pointed out. So this is asked by Crypto M4097721. What are your plans to extend Echo to other platforms like Twitter? Twitter is where maximum engagement happens for crypto. So we're definitely looking at all kinds of crypto relevant social platforms. So right now, I think the things that we're most interested in are discussions. So Twitter is really not a platform for discussions. It's really a platform that focuses on individuals and specifically very famous individuals. For us, Twitter is more like a megaphone rather than conversations. One of the things that we're extremely interested in measuring, especially with our hype platform, is really sort of, what is the impact, right, of any sort of social campaign? Are people actually starting to talk about it, right? Having influencers or having tweets about your project sent out by people who have minor followings, for example, on Twitter. That's nice, but it doesn't exactly capture what people are saying about you in a very organic sense. So Twitter is not a conversation platform. Once again, it's really about looking at what influencers are saying. Most of the time when someone posts something, influencer posts a post, most of the replies, the vast majority of the replies under their tweets are not even relevant to the post itself. So we see it really as sort of an advertising platform. Now, of course, Twitter is very important in crypto. We're definitely looking at it. We're also going to be looking at places where other types of, all other platforms where organic conversations take place in addition to Telegram. So things like Discord, things like Reddit, right? So, okay. Let's see. Will the result, so this is from redguard.terra, will the result of the checks made with Echo be announced with a rating method, and will investors also be able to use Echo? Okay, yeah, I think what you're saying is, will the analytic output, right, of Echo be made public? Yes, of course, right? It's, open source as well as decentralized trust. So everything must be made at a minimum transparently available to everyone, so that people can check on it and figure out exactly how real, how trustworthy it is, right? So yeah, we're going to be releasing the analytic approaches as well as the analytical results in semi-real time, with a few hours of delay, because computers do need to take some time to conduct the analyses. But yeah, so things like relevance, things like causation, like how do we attribute subsequent discussions? Who do we attribute it to? And identifying people who are champions or superfans within your community. So all these type of analytics we will make public. And I think once again, because these analytics are going to be made public and the reward mechanisms behind them are going to be made public, it's going to be very, very, very interesting to engage with the community, engage with everyone. Right? I think everyone can try it out. Once again, see exactly what type of impact that they're going to generate by participating in a lot of these hype campaigns. So, okay, so let's see. This is from Pejman Nasiri. Hi, Stephen. Congrats on early success so far. I wish you more. I have 2 questions. When is your Explorer go live, and how many institutions or partners are in talk with? So first of all, so thanks for the question. The Explorers have been live for a very long time. So if you go to explore.testnet.taraxa.io, that's the testnet's Explorer, and you can also go to see the mainnet's Explorer, explore.mainnet.taraxa.io. So those Explorers have been live for a while. Please go check them out. They're pretty minimal. They serve the purposes that we need right now. And later on, we'll obviously be adding functionalities to these Explorers. How many institutional partners are we in talk with? Well, for the Echo, for the previous platforms, we've been working with businesses, but one of the drawbacks is that a lot of these businesses don't really wish for their collaboration or their inner workings to be made public. So we're working with a lot of businesses. Some we can mention, some we cannot. For Taraxa Echo, right now I don't think the focus is to talk to big businesses. I think the focus might be to talk to a lot of projects that are similar to ours because they're running into exactly the same types of problems. So that's for the hype application. For the transponder application, we've identified a lot of interest, and that's how we sort of came up with that application or that use case as well. We've seen a lot of interest from investors, professional investors, as well as professional influencers who all want to figure out what should they be looking at, what should they be focused on, right? Finding out emerging trends before they become hot. So these are I think the type of people that we're going to go after to become users of these applications. And something to really make very clear is that these applications that we're making are really here to drive adoption of the underlying platform and our underlying ledger, right? So obviously, as we're not going to be making all the applications, and I can guarantee you we're not going to be making the best applications, right? But I think in driving traction of these applications really to showcase how powerful the platforms are and how powerful our ledger is, so that we can actually drive adoption of the underlying technologies and underlying signals. Okay, let's see. Okay, so MILF or Malif, I guess, or MLife asks, what makes the reputation of informal data so valuable? It's not really the reputation of informal data, right? So I think what makes informal data valuable is that there's just so much of it, right? So really, by certain estimates, over 80% of the data in the world that generated are informal, and they're largely wasted because it's very difficult to verify them, where they came from, are they even real? So there's not a lot of trust around informal data, data that's not locked into contracts, data that has not been verified and structured in databases, things like that, right? So that's why they're so valuable, because there's so much of it and they're all pretty much being wasted. So anything that we can actually do to make them trustworthy and actually deploy them into use cases would be hugely valuable. What does that have to anything to do with reputation? Well, I think a lot of times informal data represent state. I mean, anytime anything or anyone, right? Any machine or any person generates data, that's sort of like a commitment that they're making, right? They're throwing something out into the world and say, I commit to this, right? If machine generates the data, it says, you know, I'm now on or I'm off, and here's how much power I'm consuming, things like that. These are commitments. If a person says something in Twitter or in Telegram or over WhatsApp or even makes a phone call to somebody, they're making a commitment, right? They're either committing to an agreement, they're committing to a point of view. So these are all commitments, right? So if you're able to actually make them trustworthy and traceable and auditable and verifiable, then you're able to actually generate reputations for not only people, but also machines, right? So, so that's how you actually derive reputation from informal data. And that's also why, you know, informal data is so useful, because so much of it mostly gone wasted, right? So we're going to make all of them useful, and by making them trustworthy. Okay, another question from M Life. What's the best feature of the BlockDAG ledger? What separates it from the rest? Well, BlockDAG is this very, very interesting architecture that actually allows scaling, massive scaling of throughput inside a ledger without sacrificing security or decentralization, right? So this is very, very, very important. And what it does is that instead of having only one block being allowed to propose at a time, right? This happens in classic systems like Bitcoin and Ethereum, where you have a single chain architecture. In a DAG, you are able to actually produce multiple blocks at a time. So you have lots of parallel processing that can go on throughout the network. And of course, having parallel processing increases the overall throughput and efficiency of the network. And the beauty of it is that the ordering mechanism within our BlockDAG makes it so that there's no sacrifice in security and decentralization. Right? So this is very unique, and it's you know, it completely breaks down this trilemma trade-off that's mentioned in crypto quite a bit. So so that's what's so unique about it, and we're very excited to introduce it to the public. This is a question from Alte. Hello, no matter how valuable a project is, if it's not known by enough people, its real value is not reflected in the market. That's the reality in market world. Are you going to make move to focus on this marketing issue a little more to make your project more known? Yeah, so completely agree with you. If you do excellent work like we're doing, but if no one knows about it, it's you know, it's almost as if you're not doing anything at all, right? We have been pretty committed to this method of product-based marketing. Right? And the idea is very simple, is that if you spend a lot of time and resources on raising awareness, but there is no product that the community can actually use and coalesce around, then you're going to lose that attention very, very, very quickly, right? So the churn of your community members are going to be it's going to be very high if you don't have something to actually retain that attention, right? So in marketing, it's all about how much attention can you get, and then how much of that attention, once you get it, can you retain over long periods of time, right? If you're only talking about an abstract idea with no product, then that retention is very, very low, right? Over, you know, you can end up with places like where 99% or almost all the attention just leaves immediately because they're not really understanding exactly, they don't have anything to interact with. And these nice concepts that we're talking about right now isn't really made real for them, right? So we've done quite a bit of testing with a variety of marketing techniques in the past few years. And this is consistently what we find. If you don't have a product that allows the community to coalesce around, you basically lose everything, and you lose all the time and resources that you have expended and also the community has expanded as well, right? To actually attract attention from the wider community. So long story short, with the upcoming release of our platform and our application, we're going to market around those, we're going to market around products. And once we market around products, we believe that we'll achieve much better retention, and it'll be able to spread much more easily because people can see a actualized version, right? A real version of your vision. So yeah, this is something that we're very focused on, and it's just that we're going to be very product driven, right? This is once again, I think a lot of people have asked about it. I mean, we're not a meme coin, right? So meme coins, they market around nothing. So anyway, excellent question. We are definitely going to be focused on this once our product gets released. Okay, so I think those are all the interesting questions that are happening on Twitter. Let's see if anyone's asking questions inside. So someone is asking questions about automotive partnerships. So the only thing that we can say about that is we are working with an automotive company. They're huge. We can't say who they are. Legally, it's an NDA, so we can't really say anything about that. So maybe sometime in the future, we'll be released from that NDA and we'll be able to tell you more about what we're working on with them. But that's reality at this point. All right, so I guess those are all the questions. Hopefully, everyone's questions were answered, and this video will be posted on YouTube as usual, and I'll include some relevant links that were mentioned in today's AMA. So thank you very much for tuning in, and thank you for being part of the Tarasa community. All right.